Hey guys, SGT here with a very important update. I have two of my favorite truth tellers on the line, Andy Hoffman from milesfranklin.com and Bix Weir from roadtoruta.com. Fellas, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Here's the deal, guys. I thought we should talk about this DTCC news, which the automatic earth broke last night around midnight. Bix, you've reported on it. Washington's blog has reported on it. Silver Doctors has. I have. We actually posted this piece from Automatic Earth last night. Did Hurricane Sandy cause $36.5 trillion in damage? For the audience, guys, here is the breakdown of this thing. The DTCC is saying that $36.5 trillion worth of securities may have been damaged because they're underwater. And here's the punchline, guys. At 55 Water Street there in New York City, underwater because the vault had been breached by Hurricane Sandy. According to CNN Money, the vault contains certificates registered to Seed & Company, a subsidiary of DTCC, as well as, quote, custody certificates and sealed envelopes that belong to clients. This is a huge, huge number. What's crazy about this story is that it reminds me of World Trade Center 7, guys, on 9/11, and with the collapse of that building at 5:20 in the afternoon, unexpectedly and at free fall speed, almost all of the SEC documents in the ongoing Enron investigation went up in smoke. Guys, what's your take on all of this?
I'll start. Water Street, by the way, is a real place, and I know the building well. I also am particularly sensitive about World Trade Center 7 because I worked a few blocks away, and World Trade Center 7, the biggest tenant of that building at the time was Solomon Smith Barney, my employer, so we were probably more aware of what was going on there, and of course afterward we learned that extremely secretive SEC documents and other government documents were there, and that this was one of the main government intelligence buildings, and coincidentally it fell even though a plane never hit it. And as far as this, I haven't reported on it yet the way you have and Bix has, but nothing surprises me anymore. If there are paper certificates there is, as far as I'm concerned, they're as good as gone to start with. And if there actually is water damage or fake water damage, well, that just proves the point.
Bix, what's your take on this? Because, just for the audience, I want to say that, Washington's blog is giving a great postscript saying that on 9/11, $16 billion of certificates were destroyed on September 11th, and it cost $300 million to replace those paper certificates because, of course, there are backups. But in this case, if the DTCC is going to say trillions of dollars worth of certificates were damaged, we're talking tens or hundreds of billions to replace those. What's your take on all this, Bix?
The DTCC is a fraud. It's a front for the massive failure to deliver, the naked shorting, massive amount of contracts made up out of the blue, sold into the stocks and bonds and on the COMEX. The DTCC is supposed to be the ones holding the collateral for the accounts on the COMEX. And when you look at, I've been looking at this for 10 years, there is massive fraud at this organization, and this is where almost every single trade gets cleared or settled. And even they admit that they have hundreds of millions of trades that are never settled. They call them failure to delivers. For example, every stock that you buy, there's supposed to be transactions supposed to take place within 3 days. The shares, certificates are supposed to trade hands. But you look at like high frequency trading these days, and there's no way these trades are actually ever settled. So the fraud's been going on for years. I think personally this is a huge chance for them to cover something up, and what they're covering up is all the fraud that is in the paper shares. And right now, what I think they're making the transition to, or trying to make the transition to, is going from a paper system to an electronic system that they can control more. They can throw out billions and billions of shares and say, yeah, it's all here, whereas currently they have to have a paper trail. So everything's kind of up in the air. The coincidence that Hurricane Sandy hit right before the election, when the hurricane hit, right before the Republican Party nomination, it's just there's too many coincidences floating around, and Andy's right about the 9/11 stuff. There's so much more that goes into that, and I'm sure we're going to find out, months or a year down the line that Hurricane Sandy, did so much for these bad guys that they could cover a lot of stuff up. And, it always comes out, but usually not while it's going on. And right now, there's so many people with eyes on it, you can see the fraud taking place. So everything is kind of to be determined, but the DTCC always was fraudulent. And if you watch a movie called Deep Capture by Patrick Bryan of Overstock.com, he goes through the whole thing. This has been going on for 15 years, and it's really interesting. But the fraud is just basically they're knee deep in fraud. They're not knee deep in water at the DTCC.
And before I worked at Miles Franklin, I worked for 5 years as a investor relations officer or consultant to dozens of mining companies, and so I'm well aware of the way that what they're doing. They've made it to the point where most brokerages literally won't accept paper certificates from people anymore because they don't trust them. There's a worry that these certificates are not real. So it's getting to the point where people are stuck with certificates that are worthless, even though they theoretically are worth something. And I couldn't agree more with Bix that, if you're stuck with paper of any kind, there's a chance that you're never going to make a penny off it. And that goes from paper gold to paper mining shares to paper anything.
Well, this is interesting, Bix, that you brought up the fact that these failure to delivers are the key here with the DTCC. I was doing some research before the call, and our good friend Rob Kirby had written a piece back on October 22nd, 2011. It was posted at Market Oracle. People can Google this. It's the title of the piece is Algorithms, Bullion, and Criminals, the ABCs of Understanding Gold and Silver. And he's speaking specifically in this piece about the DTCC, and he says, at the link to the SEC below, there is an archive of fails to deliver equity data whose original source is the DTCC. And if you read down, it's hundreds of millions of ounces of paper gold and paper silver that are listed here. And Rob goes on to cite the dramatic shell game, which is this naked shorting game that the Wall Street criminal banks have engaged in, which really plays into CPM Group's Jeffrey Christian admitting that, sure, for every 1 ounce of physical in the vaults, there are 100 or more ounces of paper, gold, and silver in the market. All of this stuff ties together, and the apex of the criminality may not be at J.P. Morgan or Goldman Sachs. It may be at 55 Water Street, 60 feet below ground.
I think that's part of it, but it has a big thing to do with what is real and what is not. And with the DTCC claiming that all these shares that trade every day are real, or even if you go to the LBMA where theoretically they're trading physical silver and physical gold, last year at the LBMA supposedly, and this is according to their data, over 144 billion ounces of physical silver traded hands. 144 billion with a B. There's not that much silver in the world, and everybody knows it. So to believe that amount of silver traded is a complete joke. And the real interesting thing is the LBMA is an association. It's not an exchange. There are 11 banks that decide the price of silver every day, and 10 of those 11 are under investigation for the LIBOR rigging. And they do the same thing with gold and silver prices every day, and that's what the CFTC uses to say, okay, the COMEX isn't rigged because the futures and options prices are in line with the LBMA. It's complete fraud. The CFTC knows it, but they're not telling anybody. And once people realize that all these certificates and everything that goes through the DTCC is a complete fraud, then they'll wake up and run out and get their physical silver, because that's what people need to do right now, is get their hands on physical.
And by the way, I'd bet anything that of that 140 billion ounces or whatever number Bix just said, that probably 95% of it trades at the 4 times that the PMs are always hit, which are 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:20 at the open of the COMEX, 10 o'clock at the PM fix, and 12 o'clock Eastern Time, which I call the cap of last resort. It's pretty obvious what's going on to anyone who has half an eye open, and our job is to try to open as many eyes as possible before there's no physical silver left to buy.
Hey, Andy, here's one for you. It's been said that the last act of any criminal government is to loot the Treasury. When we take a look at what the definition of fascism is, it's corporatism, essentially. Do you think that that's what we're seeing here in this republic, is this last desperate act of a criminal government looting the Treasury?
Yeah, well, it's not one act per se. It's just the end of an unsustainable system, and each day when people think that there's a grand plan, I mean, there may be a grand plan, but right now we're at the point where every day they have to modify that grand plan to, they wake up and they play defense. Well, what's the problem today? How can we paper it over? And so, yes, in the big picture, we are in the last stages of desperation, and you see all these. Each day, there's some kind of defense that's played. Such as we've had our election lockdown in the last month. Every time something bad comes up, they have to figure out a way to kick the can a little more. But it's an unsustainable system, and I can't believe that there's much more left in it.
Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your time. I thought this was a really important topic to touch on, because I think this is another one of those, creeping fascist criminal nightmares that we hear about every single day. There's always a new one, and they seem to go down the memory hole. So I wanted to get this one on the record. I think it's very, very important. Any final thoughts, Bix?
Just stay safe out there. There's so much going on these days, it's hard to keep track. Just stay hunkered down and hang on to your physical silver, because something's coming down the pike.
And Andy, I know you're going on vacation, and when you get back, presumably, we just may have a new president, or we'll know who the president is. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that we've spent the last 2 months in election lockdown. Frankly, we've spent the last year, because someone sent me a great chart showing the gold price, over the last 15 years, highlighting the 4 election years. And in each one of those 4 years, it was the only years where gold was kind of held down. And, of course, gold is still up 8% this year despite all that. But the fact is, once this election is over, you're going to see big changes to the status quo. I am sure of it. It's just a matter of when.
Well, guys, I sure do appreciate your time. We all do. Bix Weir from roadtoruta.com and Andy Hoffman from milesfranklin.com. Two of the great pundits out there. We sure do appreciate your time.
Thanks
a lot.
All right. Thanks, fellas.